They called him a hero, a legend, the face of an era. But what his daughter said at his funeral left the entire room in silence. This is not just about Hulk Hogan's death. This is about the pain he hid, the love he reclaimed, and the final message that made even the strongest men cry. What really happened in those last days? Stay with us because the truth will shake you. Wrestling legend Hulk Hogan has passed away at the age of 71, leaving fans around the globe in deep shock. But what truly broke everyone's hearts was the moment his daughter, Brooke Hogan, took the stage to honor him. Her words were raw, honest, and filled with emotions, so much so that even the toughest wrestlers in the room could not hold back their tears. Yet, it was what she shared in her tribute that caught everyone completely off guard. Stay with us, because what truly happened in the final days of Hulk Hogan's life is more heartbreaking than most ever imagined. Behind the fame, the cheers, and the spotlight stood a man who carried burdens no crowd ever saw. Hulk Hogan was not just a wrestling legend, he was the face of an era. A living, breathing embodiment of strength, determination, and the American dream. Whether he was slamming giants in the ring or entertaining millions on screen, his energy and charisma made him more than a superstar. He became a household name across generations. For decades, fans only saw the hero, the Redondulo warrior, the fierce competitor, the entertainer with an unshakable smile. But behind that iconic image was a human being who lived through personal storms that rarely made the headlines. Now, at 71, the man once seen as larger than life has passed away. And in his silence, he has left behind a powerful story that is just beginning to be fully understood. In these final years, Hogan faced physical and emotional battles that he often chose to keep private. Years of injuries from his intense wrestling career had taken their toll. Multiple surgeries, chronic pain, and the quiet decline of his body contrasted sharply with the image fans still held of their immortal hero. He was in and out of hospitals, and sources close to him now admit that he lived in near constant discomfort. Yet, he rarely complained. Instead, he chose to smile, to show up, and to remind people that he was still fighting even if the fight had changed. But the real pain may not have been physical at all. Over time, Hogan began confronting the emotional wreckage of his past. Public scandals, broken relationships, and a damaged reputation that once threatened to erase all he had built. Yet through it all, he did something that very few public figures manage. He took full accountability. He apologized publicly. He worked to rebuild trust, especially with his children, and began to quietly mend the pieces of his fractured image. His daughter, Brooke Hogan, opened up in a podcast shortly before his passing, revealing that her father had changed in deep and profound ways. She described a man who had grown more gentle, more thoughtful, and far more aware of the impact his actions had on others. He was not just trying to be Hulk Hogan anymore, she said softly. He wanted to be remembered as Dad. His son Nick echoed that sentiment during his tribute, saying that his father's final wish was not to be remembered as a character, but as a man who loved, who learned, and who tried to make things right before the end. These touching reflections reveal a side of Hogan the public rarely saw, a vulnerable father trying to leave behind more than fame, a legacy built on love, growth, and redemption. And perhaps the most gut-wrenching moment of all came in the form of a final message. Brooke, in a now viral video, broke down as she shared her last conversation with her father. He told me, "Brooke, I am proud of you. And no matter what happens, know that I'm always with you." That moment shattered millions of hearts across the world, not because it came from Hulk Hogan, the wrestling icon, but because it came from a father saying goodbye. As we reflect on Hogan's life, we see more than just the roar of arenas and championship belts. We see a man who soared to unimaginable heights, stumbled through valleys of personal failure, and still found the strength to climb back toward the light. In a culture that is quick to cancel, Hogan was given something rare, a second chance. And he did not waste it. Today, his memory lives on not just in the WWE Hall of Fame, or in the endless reruns of WrestleMania classics, but in the hearts of those who grew up cheering for him, and those who learned to forgive him. Hulk Hogan is gone. But Hulkamania, that wild, untamed spirit of never giving up, lives on. And as the lights dim and the ring falls silent, we ask one final time, in the words he made famous, "What you gonna do, brother, when Hulkamania runs wild in eternity?" What she said at his funeral stunned everyone. But what she held back may have spoken even louder. Here, we reveal the private side of Hogan's journey, his health struggles, family tensions, and the painful truth behind those final moments. Was this death sudden, or were there signs all along? And what exactly did Brooke say that made grown men weep? You will want to hear every detail. As we look back on this emotional farewell, one thing becomes clear: this ending was nothing like what fans imagined. Let us take it from the beginning. Before the grief and goodbye, there was a man who shaped an entire generation of wrestling. Born as Terry Eugene Bollea in Augusta, Georgia, on August 11, 1953. Hogan's journey from a small-town boy to the face of global wrestling was a story for the ages. He stepped into the wrestling world in the late 1970s, but it was the early 1980s when the world truly began to cheer for him. With his towering height, iconic mustache, red and yellow gear, and unmatched energy, Hogan became the face of Vince McMahon's WWF, now known as WWE. That era gave birth to Hulkamania, a movement that turned wrestling into a global spectacle. Say your prayers, take your vitamins, and believe in yourself, he would tell his fans. He was more than a performer. He was a hero. His legendary matches with stars like Andre the Giant, Randy Savage, and Ultimate Warrior were not just fights, they were history-making events that packed stadiums and dominated headlines. And Hogan's influence did not stop in the ring. He took on Hollywood with roles in movies like Suburban Commando and Mr. Nanny, made TV appearances, and even released music. His fame reached beyond wrestling. He became a household name. But fame comes with a price. Beneath the bright lights and wild cheers was a man carrying a heavy burden. A life filled with performance, pressure, and physical pain began to wear him down. While the world saw a fearless warrior, Hogan was quietly suffering. Each match took a toll. Every body slam, every fall, every roaring crowd masked the growing pain within. Over time, the glory faded and reality crept in. Hogan faced battles far beyond the ring: divorces, legal troubles, and serious health problems. The same man who once stood tall as a superhero now found himself up against life's harshest opponent, time. And that is when the truth began to surface. While fans chanted his name, Hogan was enduring a painful reality behind closed doors. Years of punishing moves, cage matches, and brutal hits had left him physically worn down. He would spend hours after shows, icing his body, undergoing surgeries, and relying on painkillers just to keep going. The legend of Hulk Hogan was built on strength, but the man himself was quietly falling apart. By the time Hulk Hogan reached his late 40s, his body was already paying the price for decades of wear and tear. He had gone through several knee surgeries, but that was only the start. His back turned into a battleground. Over a dozen complex spinal surgeries followed, each one more serious than the last. In later interviews, Hogan revealed that metal rods, screws, and plates held his spine together. Still, the pain never left. One of the most heartbreaking moments came during a podcast where Hogan quietly admitted something few knew: he would sometimes lose feeling in his legs. While he continued to strut into arenas with his signature confidence, backstage was a different story. He needed help just to walk down the hallway. To the world, he still looked strong, but behind the scenes, he was falling apart. Many say the true turning point came during his run with TNA Wrestling, now Impact Wrestling, in the late 2000s. Eager to prove he still had it, Hogan pushed himself too far. One particularly bad fall caused nerve damage that made it difficult for him to walk. That injury led to another surgery and another, and soon he was spending more time in hospitals than in the ring. Still, Hogan refused to give up. He did not want anyone to see him as weak. Even after surgery, he would show up at fan conventions, flash that famous smile, and stand for hours signing autographs. He knew what he meant to people. He did not want to let them down. But the truth was, behind that public strength, he was suffering deeply. His close friend and fellow wrestling icon Ric Flair once said, "People do not realize how much pain Hulk faced just getting out of bed. Every day was a battle. And that battle wasn't just physical. The emotional weight became heavy too." Hogan opened up about feeling depressed and alone, especially as his body stopped keeping up with the legend he used to be. He no longer felt like Hulk Hogan. He felt like Terry, a man trying to hold on to a legacy that was slipping away. Then came the final blow: a spinal condition so severe that doctors warned it could leave him paralyzed. For years, Hogan kept this to himself. He was afraid of how people would react. He did not want pity. He did not want headlines. He just wanted to protect the image his fans had always believed in, the hero who could conquer anything. But by the end, even standing became difficult. And as his health declined, there was one constant in his life: his daughter, Brooke. Songs they had recorded together when she was still chasing her music career. Their relationship was not perfect, but in those final moments, it was stronger than ever. A few days before Hogan passed, Brooke posted a message on Instagram, a plain black screen with white letters. "You were always my hero, even when you were hurting." At the time, no one knew what it meant. But now, it feels like a goodbye only a daughter could write. When the hospital made the final call, Brooke refused to leave. She stayed by her father's side through the night. As the machines began to slow, and the room fell silent, she held his hand and whispered, "It's okay, Daddy. You can rest now." With tears falling, she watched the man who once ruled the wrestling world take his final breath, not under stadium lights, but in a quiet room, with the person who loved him most right there beside him. His goodbye was not loud or grand. It was gentle, peaceful, and deeply personal. It was not just the end of a superstar's journey, it was the closing of a chapter filled with love, pain, struggle, and redemption. When the news of Hulk Hogan's passing broke, the world reacted instantly. Social media was flooded with posts. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all lit up with memories, photos, and tributes from fans, wrestlers, and celebrities. People everywhere mourned the man who had inspired generations. But nothing captured the heartbreak better than his funeral. Held in Clearwater, Florida, it was more spiritual than showy. The ceremony took place in a large church that Hogan had chosen himself during his quiet return to faith in later years. And as the doors opened, fans lined the streets for one last farewell. Outside the church, some fans arrived dressed in full Hulkamania gear, ripped yellow shirts, red bandanas, and loud chants of Hogan. Hogan filled the air. For a moment, it felt like WrestleMania had returned. But inside, the atmosphere shifted. It was quiet. It was heavy. It was filled with love, pain, and respect. At the front of the cathedral stood a custom-made casket, draped not only in the American flag but also wrapped in one of Hogan's iconic red and yellow robes. His wrestling boots sat at the base. Above the casket, large screens showed images from his life, pictures of young Terry Bollea, sweet family memories with Brooke and Nick, and clips from his legendary matches. There were also softer moments, showing a man coming to terms with life and finding peace. The pews were filled with familiar faces. Some of the biggest names from wrestling and Hollywood had gathered to say goodbye. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was seen wiping away tears. During his emotional tribute, he simply said, "Without Hogan, there would be no Rock." Vince McMahon sat quietly beside Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. They all looked shaken. Ric Flair, both a rival and close friend, barely made it through his speech. "We fought in the ring," he said, his voice cracking, "but off stage, he was one of my best friends." Celebrities like Sylvester Stallone, Mr. T, and John Cena also attended. Cena became emotional as he shared, "Hogan made us believe we could live that dream. He showed us it was possible." But the most heartbreaking tributes came from Hogan's children. Brooke stepped up to the podium with shaking hands. "The world knew the legend," she said. "But I knew the man. I knew his laughter when the cameras were off. I saw his fears in the middle of the night. He gave up so many of his dreams for us." Her voice broke as she added, "He used to call me his little angel. But now I know he's mine." Then came Nick. Though their relationship had been distant, in recent years, he delivered a raw and emotional apology. "We had our issues, Dad, so many, but I never stopped loving you. I hope you knew that." His words echoed through the cathedral like a final plea for forgiveness. The most haunting moment of the service came when a children's choir softly sang Real American Hogan's iconic entrance theme. As the chorus swelled, grown men wept, wrestlers, reporters, fans, none could hold back the tears. Outside, thousands released red and yellow balloons into the sky during the burial. Some shouted Hogan's famous lines, "Say your prayers, eat your vitamins." Others simply stood in silence, lost in memories of their childhood hero. WWE honored him with a memorial at their headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. Around the world, fans lit candles and posted tribute videos. In Tokyo, a packed arena rang out with a 10-bell salute. In Mexico City, masked luchadors wore red and yellow bands to honor him. In the UK, Hogan's death led national news broadcasts. His funeral was not just a farewell to a man, it marked the end of an era. For millions, Hulk Hogan was not just a celebrity. He was a symbol of their youth, of hope, of strength. Losing him felt deeply personal, like a part of their own story had ended too. But even in death, his legacy lives on. Hulk Hogan was never just a wrestler. He was a movement, a global icon. A cultural force, he stood for resilience, redemption, and the classic American dream. Let us go back. Born Terry Eugene Bollea, he grew up in Florida, just another kid with big dreams. But once he stepped into the wrestling ring in the late 1970s, with that yellow bandana and undeniable presence, something changed. He became unstoppable. He became a hero. Wrestling was once a small corner of entertainment. By the mid-1980s, thanks to Hogan, it was a global phenomenon. He headlined the very first WrestleMania. He body-slammed Andre the Giant in front of a record crowd at WrestleMania 3, a moment etched forever in sports history. And his voice. His catchphrases like "What you're gonna do, brother, when Hulkamania runs wild on you," became part of everyday language for a generation. His theme song, "Real American," became a battle cry for fans. But Hogan didn't stop at wrestling. He jumped into Hollywood with roles in Suburban Commando and Mr. Nanny. He even had a hit reality show, Hogan Knows Best. His face was on lunchboxes, toys, cereal boxes, Saturday morning cartoons. He became part of American culture. But fame has shadows. Hogan faced lawsuits, scandal, divorce, and public backlash. There were leaked tapes and harsh headlines. For a time, many believed his reputation might not recover. But then came the comeback. In the last years of his life, Hogan sought redemption. He publicly apologized for his past. He made quiet peace with those he had hurt. He poured time into helping others, supporting children's hospitals, military vets, and mental health programs. Most importantly, he worked to heal his family. Brooke and Nick had been through public turmoil too. But in the end, Hogan tried to be more present, more humble, more real. Just a few months before he passed away, Brooke opened up on a podcast about how much her father had changed. She said he had become gentler, wiser, and truly sorry for the mistakes he had made. Nick, who had once gone through his own legal troubles, shared in a tribute. He didn't want the world to only remember him as Hulk Hogan. He wanted to be remembered simply as Dad. And now, after his death, the real meaning of Hogan's legacy shines more clearly than ever. He completely transformed the world of wrestling. It used to be something only seen in small regions, but he helped turn it into a global phenomenon. His huge personality opened the doors for stars like Stone Cold, The Rock, John Cena, and Roman Reigns. Every wrestler stepping into a ring today owes something to him. He was the first to show the world that wrestling was more than just fights. It was about emotion, storytelling, and entertainment. Hogan became more than just a wrestler. He turned into a cultural icon. People saw him as the bold face of the 1980s, a nostalgic figure of the 90s, and a man of reflection in the 2000s. He was joked about, praised, criticized, and loved, but he was never forgotten. He went through dark moments, but he did not leave this world as a villain. He left as a man who admitted his wrongs and tried to make peace with them. In today's world, where people are often pushed away for their mistakes, Hogan was given something rare, a second chance. His name is forever part of the WWE Hall of Fame, Hollywood memories, and the hearts of fans across the globe. His story reminds us all. Even the biggest heroes fall. But what truly matters is how they get back up, to the kids watching his old matches online, to the grown-ups remembering the magic of their childhood, to the wrestlers who now follow the path he cleared, and to the family he loved deeply. Hulk Hogan may be gone, but hope that will never fade. And now, as the red and yellow lights dim into the night, we quietly echo his famous words one last time. What you gonna do, brother, when Hulk Hogan rides off into eternity and Hulkamania runs wild in the hearts of us all?